Hello everyone, and welcome to another video for the YouTube channel. That's right. We're not doing Legacy this week. We are actually playing some Vintage this week. So I'm trying to decide what's going on in Vintage at the moment. We just came off of the restriction of Urza Saga and Vexing Bauble, and we're just trying to figure out what the format's doing, to be honest with you. And as am I. But hey, we're having some fun this week with the format by playing a card that was just also recently banned in Modern. And that card is Nadu, Winged Wisdom. I'm sure that everybody knows what this card does, but we will read it for everybody, just so that we can establish what this deck is trying to do. So Nadu Winged Wisdom is a 3/4 flyer for 1 green and a blue, and he has creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. So we're going to be using this with cards like Nomad's en-kor, which can redirect damage, but it targets a creature. And so you can pay 0 and target a creature with it, which gives you a free Nadu activation. We also get cards like Sylvan Safekeeper, which you can sacrifice a land and give a target creature you control Shroud. There's also cards like Bristly Bill, Spine Sower, that has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Because this is Vintage, and we are mostly basing this on some of the more recent Bant Nadu lists that have been popping up in Legacy, we are most surely leaning on this being a Green Sun Zenith deck, wanting to have cards like Collector Oof in the main, Springheart Nantuko, Lavinia Azorius Renegade, Endurance, of course Nadu, Delighted Halfling, Noble Hierarch, those sorts of things. But we also get access to like our power, Ponders, Ancestral Recall, Swords to Plowshares, Oko Thief of Crowns, Narset Parter of Veils, those kinds of cards that we gain access to. This is the second iteration of this deck list that I've been kind of working on. I did play the first draft iteration of this on my weekly stream last week, but I did want to see where this deck is going. I do think this deck is really interesting, and it's really powerful. It has some really fun lines to it. There are some rough matchups here or there. I don't think the Bazaar matchups are very good, and I also am iffy on Jewel Shops a little bit as to what that looks like. That's why we're trying to shore up with Narset Parter of Veils, more Collector Oofs in the sideboard, Hull Breacher, those kinds of cards. The only sideboard card I'm really not super thrilled about is Grafdigger's Cage, and that's because it shuts off my own Green Sun Zenith, which is not something ideal for the deck. But we're working through this deck, and I have a feeling I'm going to play it some more in the future because it is a lot of fun. It is very interesting. I absolutely enjoy Nadu as a Magic card. I know that's a weird take for a lot of people that were not happy with that card in Modern, but I think in Legacy and Vintage that card is a very reasonable power level, and I think it's a lot of fun to play in those formats. So we are going to play a League with this, so sit tight, and we'll get right to round 1 shortly. And before we get going, I want to thank the Magic Online Content Creator Program for giving me the opportunity to do this sort of thing. If you are interested in checking out their program, they are still currently taking applications as far as I know. So if you are a content creator looking to get into this space, please check it out and apply. It is a lot of fun. And thank you again to them for allowing us to be able to create great and amusing, fun content like this. Okay, and we are here for round 1, and this seems reasonable to keep. It's got some action in it. We've got Mox Emerald, Ponder, Time Walk, and we're on the play, so that Time Walk does seem very good. It's worth noting that our opponent, Revenant Kyoku, is a fellow Magic Online creator in that space on YouTube. Maybe not officially part of the program, but they are an awesome person. So give them some shout out, some love. I'll link their link their YouTube down in the description. That's for sure, because super awesome person. And also well aware that our opponent is a well-known Doomsday player, so just expecting that that's going to be the thing. Having to go down so many cards here, 4 cards, definitely rough. But having like the mental misstep and maybe a force of will here to try and prevent a Doomsday, it's really all we're trying to do at this point. We're trying to get on board with some creatures, at least to maybe attack with, and try to have like some things on board ready for the combo, like Nomad's en-kor. We rip a Nadu next turn, we're in a really good place. So we got to kind of just hope for the best in that regards. So we deploy Springheart NADUUKEN and Nomad's en-kor, and our opponent just kind of passes the turn. We get to make an insect with our NADUUKEN off of a Dryad Arbor. It's not ideal. Not a super ideal place to be. We really want like a Green Sun Zenith or a Nadu, especially now that they're mystical tutoring. Have to imagine so they're mystical tutoring for Ancestral Recall, which not really worth spending this force on Ancestral. The only unfortunate thing about that is of course, if they had the Dark Ritual into Doomsday already, that's really good. If they are if the Ancestral drew them that's even better. There's cases to be made for fighting over the Ancestral. I don't think fighting over the Ancestral made sense at this point, but they can draw protection for their Doomsday as well. So Collector Oof, not ideal in this scenario. We just attack. We'll probably try to deploy it. They do tend to build a lot of piles in Doomsday that are based on Black Lotus, so having a Collector Oof might be good there. And they are going to go ahead and force it. And I feel like this is fine because it's one less force. Maybe they don't have another one in hand, another force plus blue card. Obviously, like, they're going to go for their Doomsday. We're going to try and force it. And they, we are able to force the Doomsday. Teferi is also sort of meh here. Like, it's a reasonable card, and it shuts off any sort of counter magic, but we're also Hellbent. Hellbent in the sense of, we're going to draw a card, but Sage being that card is kind of rough. That's kind of messed up. The awkward thing here is we don't have any legendary creatures, so it didn't matter if we held Dryad Arbor or not, because Boseiju still costs 1 and a green. If Boseiju counted the Planeswalkers as well, for example, then that would be really good. So our opponent's going to cast Doomsday. We are going to cut ahead because Doomsday takes a lot of time to resolve, so here we are, cut ahead, and they are going to start kind of doing their thing. Street Wraith into Gush, into, I want to say Lotus, Lotus, and then they have just natural, they have Time Walk, and Boss's Oracle, and that ends game 1 for us. That we are dead. So we're back on the play in game 2. This seems fine. I think just being able to like turn 1 Nadu, force back up, that sort of thing seems like a really strong place to be. Especially since we could draw Nomads, we could draw a Green Sun Zenith to get like Sylvan Safekeeper into play. We could get Bristly Bill, one of those cards. And it is an interesting conundrum for the opponent. Do they counter the Nadu or do they not? Because it can get out of hand really quickly, which is it's fun to watch when it does get out of hand. Okay, so Gitaxian Probe. So they kind of know we have forces, we have endurance, we can't cast. You can't even cast it, hard cast it with the mana that we have available. We have one green source in play. Seems like they're going to go for the safer route here. They may not have a backup for this, for a Doomsday, which is fine. It makes sense for them to sit back and collect resources so they have the thing. So now we have a potential, so we have a green source, second green source for an endurance, which can be pretty reasonable. And we will go ahead and we'll fetch that. There. It didn't really matter. We don't really see Stifle in Vintage as a format, but yeah, you know. So under City Sewers, it is really nice seeing these Surveil lands in Vintage as well as in Legacy. They are great cards. I do expect that we'll see more of them. Yeah, Ancestral Recall is fine. Like, we want to hope that they have like one counterspell, and then we can leverage that into sort of like multiple counterspells. Like, or rather, we want to leverage that into like if they have Doomsday, we have counterspell plus endurance. Like, we could hard cast endurance. Okay, so they cast Black Lotus. Passing turn. Get to untap. So Green Sun Zenith is a reasonable Magic card here, because it helps us get probably the best card that we get here is Sylvan Safekeeper. So they are going to just let it go. So we get Sylvan Safekeeper. And we'll leverage that tapped land into an untapped. Not an untapped land. Oh, hey, we get to get a Nomad's en-kor going. The rough thing about this is that in order for us to have used Sylvan Safekeeper there, we needed to give Nadu Shroud, and that's an awkward thing for these decks because if you're giving Nadu Shroud, you can no longer target Nadu for the second time. If once that ability resolves, it is untargetable at that point. But so this Nomad's rough on us, but we might be able to leverage it into something. So they are digging, and they're digging because they want to find an answer to this Nomad's en-kor, because this Nomad's en-kor represents combo potential. We are able to kind of just start drawing a bunch of cards with Nadu. A lot of people used to think that, like, when this first card first came out in Legacy and in Vintage, a lot of the major idea was, hey, we have to use this card to combo with Thassa's Oracle, and that's the whole point of the card. But what we really found out since then is that you don't have to. It is great all on its own to just draw like 6 to 10 cards a turn. So they're going to try and force it. We'll float, see if we get a kind of another blue card. We have another green card for endurance. We'll go ahead and we'll pitch the force. So we only get to literally only have gotten to draw a few cards this turn. Okay, so they're going to try and Fatal Push. So here's the fun part about this, is we get to just kind of we have that Caracas, we could just give Shroud in response, and I think they realize that. So game 3, we're back on the draw. This looks reasonable. I like any hand that has Ponder, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Endurance, green card, Gitaxian Probe. And that green card being Delighted Halfling is always fantastic. Okay, so they get Taxi and Protest as well. We get to do the same. Now, I think for a second, like, I think our opponent would be like, Cataxian Probe, haha, mental misstep you, or don't have to pay life for it, or, what's the other card? Spell Pierce, or, etc. But, okay. Yeah, they have a hand. They've got certainly got 8 cards in hand. They've got some Dark Rituals, and there's a Ray of Enfeeblement. So we're gonna cast. Yeah, we're gonna cast Ponder. This Ponder is actually pretty good. Nadu at this point is not as great, but having 2 forces is not bad. But we only have 3 blue cards at hand, so they could get dicey here. We could end up in a situation, but our opponent also doesn't have. They do have Dark Ritual into Doomsday. So they are going to cast Doomsday. We're going to let that resolve. They don't have an ability to go off this turn. They have to pass the turn. This is a pass the turn Doomsday. So we kind of have an ability to just have 2 forces, 2 blue cards, plus endurance. And that's kind of where we want to sit. We want to make sure that they don't have. So I tinkered with maybe countering this Black Lotus. Doesn't feel worth it. Feels worth it to hold on to the Force of Negation for when they're pretty much hellbent. Rather hellbent like in their library, and you have the Thassa's Oracle on the stack. Like I think that's where we want to be able to hit that. So Ancestral's fine. They're going to have 0 cards in their library. We could have also just cast Ancestral, targeting them, which would have been ultimately hilarious. So we forced them. It would have been style points, I think, to cast Ancestral targeting them. But I think we just go for the definitive. Look, there's this. If you have a counterspell, it's over. Okay, so we are here for round 2 of this Bant Vintage Nadu deck. And this looks like a really reasonable hand. It's got Delighted Halfling. It has a force and a blue card. It actually has 2 forces and 2 blue cards if we really have to. I don't like having to pitch like Nadus and Lavinias to forces, but hey. So Sink into Stupor, right off the bat, our opponent went deep on mulligans, and they cast Ancestral right off the bat. Getting to Gitaxian Probus. Sink into Stupor, obviously one of the newer cards from Modern Horizons 3. And then, of course, the now restricted copy of Vexing Bubble. I feel like we should have forced it. But at the same time, I also really like having the the Vexing Bubble maybe shutting them off enough to where they have to crack it. But yeah, like I'd be looking forward to having like Lavinia in play to be able to actually like win the game. But this is Jewel Shops, so they are pretty scary when it comes to some of the things that they can do even through a Vexing Bubble. So, yep, they're going to pass turn. We do get to uncounterably resolve a Lavinia here, which is nice, thanks to the fact that Vexing Bubble is shutting off things, but also because of Delighted Halfling. So Delighted Halfling giving us that ability to just like shunt a Lavinia into play is very good. Because that also shuts off their ability to leverage their artifact mana to cast cards like Coveted Jewel. So they can't cast Coveted Jewel unless they have 6 lands in play at that point. But our opponent's going to Phyrexian Metamorph, and they are going to make a copy of Lavinia. Yeah. And so with that, they don't need the Vexing Bubble anymore. They get to sacrifice it. Which is interesting, so now both players, it's almost like there's a Vexing Bubble in play. Both players can't cast, non-creature spells. It's a little better than having Vexing Bubble in play, in my opinion, because you get to just not have to worry about that. But yeah, so since we are not in a position of worrying about casting non-creature spells from our hands, unfortunately, because we can't because of the Lavinias. Lavinia also does something very interesting, is even if you have enough mana to like hard cast a Force of Will, if you don't have like 5 lands, you can't do it, because that's the best part about the spell. So that's pretty cool. So I think they're figuring out, I can't cast that. So exile something off the top with Mystic Forge. But this is a good place for us, because we could leverage. The One Ring. We could leverage this Nadu into something good. If we have like Bristly Bill. Yeah, Bristly Bill into like a Dryad Arbor, or even like a fetch land would be very good. They decided to just skip to game 2. Okay. So, this hand is not good. I don't like this hand at all. We're definitely going to toss this one back. This is a hand. It's kind of what we can expect from this deck. We could have gone down to 5, but it would not have been a better hand. They did mulligan as well, but they do have a really good start here, like Mana Crypt into Manifold Key, Urza Saga, the restricted copy of Urza Saga. These restricted cards showing up all over the place here. We will draw for turn. I really think I should just ponder it here. But I was thinking of like a card like Wormcoil Engine or something like that might be problematic. And I don't like that in a sense, so One Ring is very strong. That card is quite good. It will draw a lot of cards if it is left unchecked. And what the best thing about this Jewel deck is that they can use like Phyrexian Metamorph to copy it, and that is really, really strong. Alright, so I guess we get to ponder. We probably should have pondered last turn, especially since this ponder doesn't look that great, and just draw another land. A Force would have been really nice here. That would have been a really fantastic play. But it's not what we get. And our opponent gets to really kind of have some rain here, because Saga gets to go get Vexing Bubble. And that's very good. And tinker away the Mana Crypt is insane, because then they get to go get Time Vault and just win the game. Because next turn's ring drawing 3, we're just going to go game 3. So back on the play for game 3. And this actually looks pretty reasonable. Like, it's got Strip Mine, it's got Nadu, Time Walk, Ancestral. I think what I really like about it is Ancestral. I probably should have just jammed Delighted Halfling here, but especially since they do get to get probe here, is that right? Yeah, get probe. Yeah, they get probe. Yeah, like, they get to see it. They know I don't have any shields. We were just kind of thinking about it, like, okay, maybe we get probe. But this is a weird play from them. So they have Mox Emerald and then Mishra's Workshop, and nothing to follow it up with, which is interesting. And I have Strip Mine, so just Strip Mine. Then I think we're just kind of holding on to this Ancestral for something, just to kind of sit on it. Essentially, is kind of what we're trying to do. All right, so Ancient Tomb and a Mox Emerald. We'll go ahead and we will kind of leverage this Time Walk. I really, like I said, I probably should have cast Delighted Halfling way earlier than this. That way we would have been Time Walking like the turn before with the Strip Mine. Collector Oof is a very reasonable Magic card here. So they are going to definitely try and force it. This is where we will try to spend this Ancestral Recall. And heck yeah, hit a force. Seems like a really strong thing. So hitting the force, being able to turn off their artifacts with Collector Roof seems very good. The thing that scares me about this is like cards like Wormcoil Engine. That always scares me out of the sideboard of this deck. I don't know what I'm doing here. I need to fetch first before I cast Nadu, because I want to be able to have Caracas up just in case. That's a very good play to have a Caracas up with Nadu. We'll swing and we'll get in there with the Collector Oof, and yeah. I feel a little bit more pleased with this this deck. So, and they concede. Okay, and we are here for round 3 of Bant Nadu, and immediately right at the bat we're throwing that back. Like, there was no lands in that hand. Seemed really rough. This seems a little bit better. It's like turn 1 Ponder, Delighted Halfling, that sort of thing. Like, we can certainly leverage that. So turn 1 Ponder. Yeah, I don't mind having another Force of Will. Like, that seems like a good place to be. Delighted Halfling, at least, like, does some things. We are drawing a fetch land next turn, so that is something to think about. But I think I'm okay with that. Eldrazi Temple, Mox Jet. Ugh, scary. So Modern Horizons 3 All-Star, Glaring Fleshraker. Since they do not have like a Cavernous Hold or something like that, that is most assuredly getting countered. That is a scary, scary Magic card right there. So we will Sylvan Safekeeper. It's not really doing anything for us just yet. We're Hellbent. They have 4 cards in hand. They could very easily deploy another Safekeeper. That would be very, very problematic. Or not necessarily another Fleshraker. Wastegate Battle Mage, though, with the green kicker killing our Mox Sapphire. And not just destroying it, it gets exiled, which is wild. That is absolutely nuts. That's what that does. So I really should have. Green Sun Zenith. Like, I should just cast this. Like, they can't counter it. Like, I'm thinking, like, I have a Green Sun Zenith. That's Nadu. You know, a turn later, maybe I draw a land, but I don't have a land. I really should have cast it now. I'm just thinking about it out loud in my head. Like, that's what should have happened. Why? Because Wasteland. Wasteland exists. That's a card, and you know that is the thing that occurs. So, yep, getting attacked by this Wastegate Battle Mage. We are definitely not blocking that with these or creatures. We need those. We can't cast this Ancestral Recall because we don't have any blue mana now. But we can get blue mana by Green Sun Zenithing to get Noble Hierarch. And yes, we're put off a turn off of that, but at least we have blue mana for next turn to cast Ancestral Recall. So we pass turn. And another Cavern of Souls. Ooh. Cavern is really, really good in this Eldrazi deck. Yep, we are not blocking that Wastegate Battle Mage. So yeah, we get to draw some cards with Ancestral Recall, and okay, sure. We might as well just jam this Nomad's en-kor. The awkward part of Delighted Halfling being the fact that it only makes colored mana and it for legendary permanents, legendary spells, and that stinks. So another Wasteland taking us off of lands almost entirely, which is rough. That's awkward as heck. Yeah. Another attack from the Wastegate Battle Mage. Okay, so Ponder is a thing that I like to do first, even though we could cast. Yes, okay, so yes, we're just gonna. So Mox Pearl at least gets us something. And we can at least cast a second Nomads. Secluded Courtyard named Eldrazi. Doesn't seem like they're drawing much, and they chose not to attack at that turn, so that's interesting. Bristly Bill is a very interesting Magic card. I like it from the standpoint of gum up the board with creatures. They don't have a lot going on here, and this force is doing nothing for us, so there's no reason to keep this Delighted Halfling in hand. Strip Mine is certainly a Magic card that exists. We don't have any lands though, so that's totally okay. Oh, look, it's a land. The Strip Mine might kill, but they're not going to do it because it's fetch land, and obviously they would have to force the issue and hide fetch again. But we do get to make Bristly Bill slightly bigger, which is nice. That is nice. We're not fetching though. Strip Mine Wasteland. Ugh. So they're gonna get us on every aspect there. Glaring Frustraker. Not being able to stop this Glaring Frustraker is rough. That is a very, very strong Magic card, and it can get pretty dicey pretty quickly. All right, so we are probably should have just kept putting counters on Bristly Bill, but I was trying to spread out a little bit, not go all in on Bristly Bill for these counters. Probably should have put the counters on the Nomad's en-kor. Three land destruction effects here. One Strip Mine and 2 Wastelands. It's insane. So yeah, Endurance. Also a very good Magic card. We can probably cast this Endurance. We'll lose a land to do so, but I like the idea of recycling my graveyard back into my library, also making Bristly Bill slightly bigger. But we'll do it to the Noble Hierarch. That seems fine. The fact that it was probably a poor idea. We probably should have put more on the Bristly Bill or on the Nomads. Just because we needed the mana. We need the mana from the Noble Hierarch. But we do get to cycle our graveyard back into our library, so. Strip Mine. Put a counter on there. We probably should have hit Eldrazi Temple instead of Cavern of Souls. Cavern of Souls is not doing anything for us. We do get this Exalted trigger off of this this Endurance. They're going to block. It makes sense for them to block. Like, I don't think that's a big thing. With these mini land destruction effects, we are literally just getting smacked. So whenever I see red for Eldrazi, Eldrazi Linebreaker, that is a scary Magic card. What I never understand about this is our opponent opts. Okay, so they cast a Mana Crypt. We get another Fleshraker trigger. We have 4 Eldrazi in play. They are now Hellbent. But they're, instead of giving the bonus here to the Eldrazi Linebreaker itself, giving the Eldrazi Linebreaker haste. Yeah, that was odd, because that card has Trample. Why would you not give it to the card that has Trample? Now, granted, I understand, you may not want to lose your Linebreaker. That's a way you win the game. But it has Trample. And it's going to end the game really quickly. And we're okay with them, possibly just wasting us. Even if they do it on our turn, it's fine if they waste us. That's okay. This Force of Will is not doing anything. And now we're kind of stuck because we can't attack, because we do have to keep our defenses up for the Trampler if they do decide to give the Trampler a thing. So problematically, them tapping mana for something is scary. And that being Karn is even scarier. So we absolutely have to kill the Karn, counter the Karn. We are going to take some damage, though, from this glaring Fleshraker. So the Fleshraker represents kind of a clock, because if we don't get it off the board, we just die really quickly. Alright, go to our turn. This Brainstorm is not bad. I like seeing the Brainstorm. It's awkward Brainstorm, because I have Ancestral and Ponder. I really want this Ancestral. We'll probably put back the 2 blue cards and play the land as a way to boost one of our creatures. So we get to make Bristly Bill a little bigger. Bristly Bill is now a 5/5. We do get to do some things with. We could do some things with Nomad's en-kor, but I think we just block with a Nomad's en-kor. We can lose 1, and that's probably fine. Tapping mana. Tapping mana with a glaring Fleshraker out is always very scary. Okay, Thanatos here. What would have worried me would have been a second glaring Fleshraker. That would have been a little bit more problematic, in my opinion. Thanatos here is fine. I have no cards in hand. Ooh, scary. Rough position here. Okay, they're giving it to the Spawn token. So Eldrazi Linebreaker just gives them haste and +X +so. It does not give them trample. And that is very big. So I thought about, okay, hey, we block with Eldrazi, we block with that, but it's a 6/1. I think we can just steer this Nomads into it. It's totally fine. So, go to our turn. We get to draw this Ancestral Recall, which is huge. I like the Ancestral Recall quite a bit. So we will... Doesn't really matter what we get. So we will make ourselves draw with Ancestral Recall. Lotus Green Sun Zenith is like the most positive thing we could get here, because that means we get Nadu. And with the board state that we have, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, like that's like almost like 16 cards a turn. So we're gonna skip this and go to like the end here, and they just quit. They just concede. So, and then we go to game 2. I liked this. Like, it looked reasonable. Like, there's a plow, there's a strip mine. Like, strip mine versus Eldrazi, generally pretty good. This is not a deck that can play Wastelands, unfortunately. Like, it's a really rough sell to play Wasteland in this deck, unfortunately. And I say that because the mana base is just really, really tight, and I don't think you can play any number of Wastelands. At most, you could play one Wasteland, and at that point, we're just playing Strip Mine. Strip Mine hits anything, so that's the general consideration there. Alright, so yeah, we have Plow. I could have pondered here. Could have Delighted Halfling. What scares me is Glaring Flushtrigger. So obviously, like, they cast Glaring Flushtrigger, they get a trigger off of it, but we do get to plow it to get it off the board, which is huge. Getting rid of it in general is a good thing. But they do get 2 mana out of this because they get a Mox's Jet and It That Heralds the End. Very good magic card. Okay, so we have Force. We Time Walk. Try and figure out something to do with this setup. So, I mean, we get to ponder, we get to plow this, we get to ponder, and then we get to Delighted Halfling. Which, this is reasonable. We get a Force. They don't have a counter Burn of Souls. This gets us Nadu next turn, which is reasonable. Waste. Another Glaring Flushtrigger. That definitely feel like that's got to go away. So I like where I was at with this because we do have access to some things like, hey, we get to get Nadu into play. And I would be very happy to have that. I didn't like the fact that we had other tapping mana. So I thought, oh, hey, if this is just so it's Null Drifter. Okay. So Null Drifter is like Null Drifter Evoked is fine because we're not getting attacked by it. Mana source, mana source, mana source. So many mana sources out of Eldrazi. I thought, okay, they're tapping mana for something. But Thought-Knot Seer. This Thought-Knot Seer is bad for us because I didn't really want to have to lose this Oko. I thought maybe, hey, we get a plow, but we already spent 2 of our plows, and there's really only like 2 in the deck, unless I brought in another one. I think I did. And unfortunately, we can't cast this Endurance, which is rough. Like, this Endurance would be great if we could cast it, because then we could do the thing. This is where I mess up. This is definitely a mess up, on my opinion. So they're tapping lots of mana, and generally when you see lots of mana get tapped in modern day Eldrazi decks, it is sowing Micah Spawn, and that card is absolutely absurd and very powerful. So Yeah, I thought, okay, hey, maybe we hit a replacement land off of this. No. Okay. We could cast this endurance. Like evoke it. Like that would be pretty reasonable. But we're so far behind at this point. It's not even worth it. So we're gonna go to game 3. I really liked this hand. I like this hand quite a bit. Just like turn 1 Lotus, Delighted Halfling, and Nadu. Like, seems like a really, really goofy fun play. Honestly, I think even in a vacuum, I think it's a reasonable play. Having to tap my mana right, of course, but I thought, hey, this is reasonable. We could draw a Nomads, and then we're off to the races. Like, we could draw a Green Zenith. We're off to the races. Tabernacle. Ugh. It's not as bad as it sounds at first. Like, there is the fact that we have Delighted Halfling plus like a land we can cast. We can keep them both alive. Mana Vault. Mox Emerald. Mox Sapphire. Mana Vault. Thought Seer. That's awkward. Taking that extra Nadu out of hand. Okay, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. I thought maybe, hey, we get there, like, we draw a Nomads, or we draw a, something. Like, Dryad Arbor is obviously not a card that we want to see in this scenario. It's not a great card in that regards. But maybe we see something like that. That would be helpful for us. Excuse me. I mean, they're clearly going to die from their Mana Vault, obviously. Yeah, that's just how it goes. But taking 4 a turn from a Thought Seer is pretty rough. That is definitely not fun. So we do get to fetch. It doesn't really matter what we fetch. It's a color. Yeah, we will pay, and what we're really hoping for here is we're keeping up enough mana to cast. Sylvan Safekeeper is a reasonable magic card here, because we get to play this Dryad Arbor, and we gotta get to just sack this Dryad Arbor right off the bat to try and see if we draw something. Mental Misstep is not a card we wanted to draw here. Really, what would have been nice would have been a replacement land. And I think that maybe we should just waited to activate Sylvan Safekeeper on a follow-up turn, like in response to like the Tabernacle triggers. Might have been a better spot for that. Seems really rough though. Like, what do? You're definitely not going to block this. Scary tapping mana. Always scared of Eldrazi tapping mana. Okay, so we got some Tabernacle triggers to resolve. If it wasn't risky, like, and it is absolutely incredibly risky, I would most assuredly sack some lands here to try and draw some cards, but there's just a real chance that we just break and we don't hit anything. And then we're in parity. Like, Nomads would be, like, fantastic. I would take a Nomads all day long, because then we could just draw enough cards to power through anything. But, okay, so using all that mana, they have to untap Mana Vault, so they're not taking that damage. And the Wasteland's rough, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Like, we do end up with the same thing happening. But there is a chance that Nadu draws us a land, but it didn't. This is the awkward part of Nadu being a card. We're now at a point where we can't pay for Sylvan Safekeeper as well, so that's awkward. And now we're kind of stuck in a point where we're probably dead pretty soon. If not very soon. If they are able to restrict our mana some more and draw an Oko, that doesn't do it. And they have so much mana available now at this point. We're probably just not winning this game. They are able to pay for their Tabernacle triggers. They have tons of mana available if we get like Mycos Bond, Sowing Mycos Bond, or Flesh Record, or Eldrazi Linebreaker. Like, it doesn't matter what happens at this point, we're pretty much dead. And there's an Eldrazi Linebreaker, so we're just going to concede to that. Alright, so we are here for round 4 of Vintage Bant Nadu. And right off the bat, like, Vexing Bubble. I probably should have countered this, but, it's one of those things where, yeah, you counter it, but then your shield's down for everything else. And your shield's down anyways. It's a darned if you do, darned if you don't. If you don't have more than one force or blue card, it is what it is. Now, it could be, you have to counter it, and they don't do anything else, but as we can see here, we're getting one-ringed on turn 1. This is a true vintage turn 1, it really feels like. So, yeah, getting one-ringed, really kind of rough. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good vintage turn 1, I feel. Now, I think, casting Ponder here, probably okay, like, whatever. I also maybe should have kept that Force of Will on top, but not having a second blue card to go with it. Although, well, actually, no, I shouldn't have kept that Force of Will on top because there's a Vexing Bubble in play. Brr. Oh, man. I have one of those days so far with this deck. Yeah, and this Mental Misstep is even worse because I can't cast it either. So maybe we should have just cast Ancestral Recall. I'm not really sure. But them having Phyrexian Metamorphosis One Ring here, really good. They get to draw a lot more cards because of this. They do go to discard, and it's like, okay, well, we could get to a point where like we could try and get a Collector Oof, in play. I think probably what I should do here is not this Nomad's en-kor. Probably should be Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor. That way we have at least some mana the next turn to kind of try and hit a Collector Oof. But I think we're so far in the weeds here with them on turn 3 having 10 cards in hand and just all sorts of mana available to them. This feels really, really good, to be honest with you. And it feels like it's even better because, okay, so they got another Grim Monolith, have a ring with 2 counters, another Mishra's Workshop, Phyrexian Metamorph as a Grim Monolith. They're getting pretty hard here. I think what they we'll end up doing here. So, okay, so we get to untap Grim Monolith. We're floating a lot of mana. And one of the cards that Jewel plays is Paradox Glaucom. So we have to expect that if they're floating this much mana, they're either going to try for Coveted Jewel or they're going to try for PO. So they go for PO. We're going to skip ahead here because there's a ton of stuff that they do here, and they end up with a really crazy board state. So we are going to just skip ahead to this. And at some point they cracked that Vexing Bubble. It was not good enough, honestly. Like, having that time lock, just not good enough. So, game 2. this is like too many lands for my taste. This is a much better hand. This hand's just nuts. We'll put back Nadu, because... now, there is a notion here that I should have cast... So I cast Narset here. So Narset's very good. If they had a counterspell, I think they would have been countering Narset. I should have used Narset to look first before casting the Collector Roof, but yeah, it is what it is. Just so I had that extra blue card for the Force of Will in hand. So they are going to try and dismember the Collector Roof. We're going to force that. And they concede. So we'll go to game 3. This didn't look bad, but at the same time, like I like having like cards like Flusterstorm, Strip Mine. That was kind of what we want to do here. So Strip Mine, try and cut them off of mana that untaps other mana. So Grim Monolith, obviously, like it doesn't untap. If they don't have a key, then they are stuck with that, so that makes it rough. Cutting off soul lands feels very strong. Yeah, so they're more than willing to just let us kind of do our thing. I don't like it per se, but there is things to do here. Urza Saga, the restricted copy of Urza Saga. A lot of restricted cards we are seeing show up all around the place, and since those cards were restricted, seeing them feels like we're seeing them more, which is not true, but it is something that occurs. So I think we were thinking, let's hold up Hull Breacher. Like, that seems like a really, really smart play. They play a lot of cards that draw cards, and let's hold that up. And I don't think it was correct, personally. I think it was me being somewhat slightly tired and being like, they're going to dismember my thing. Flash in this Hull Breacher in response. Like, that sort of thing. And I mean, we have 2 plows in hand. Like, we could reasonably find a card that, stops what's going on. But Metamorph has a copy of my Hull Breacher. Real awkward in this scenario. And just not even thinking about it, like casting a Ponder into this, as I'm going to do here. I'm going to cast a Ponder into this, and I feel really bad about it. Giving them a treasure, not ideal here. Yeah, there's a land on top for this, for the Ponder, for the Source of Plowshares, but it doesn't do anything, and it gives them a treasure, and woof. And they also have Urza Saga, so yeah, we just concede. Okay, and we are here for round 5 of the final round of this league with Vintage Bant Nadu, and we're on the play. This seemed somewhat reasonable. It's like Time Walk into, a turn 2, something. I'm not too super thrilled with drawing a bunch of lands here. Probably should have played out Strip Mine, I feel like, but it's what stinks here is getting stuck here with Force, no blue card, Endurance, no blue card, and maybe we should have kept up Endurance. I'm not really sure. That may have been a better play, is to just keep up Endurance. So our opponent gets to get Probus, so they get to see, hey, nothing's going on up top. We do have a Strip Mine. That is something that is there, at least. Yep, okay. They are going to fetch. More than likely going to cast Ancestral Recall while we have shields down. Drawing another land. Strip Mine the land here. Okay, sure. We do have Endurance up. there's only one deck in the format that plays Underground Sea, is not playing Lurrus to an extent. That's Doomsday. So I'm gonna guess that this is what they're playing. They're playing Doomsday. And so we fetch for Underground Sea. Dark Ritual. Yep, proving me right. Doomsday. And there's the Doomsday. We are going to skip ahead here because that Doomsday takes such a long time to resolve on Magic Online. So they... Black Lotus, Cycle Street Wraith, Black Lotus, Preordain. They're going to try and do their thing. We have to assume that they have... if they're going for it now, they know that they are able to go for it. There's no issues there. Ancestral Recall. Mox Sapphire. And then go for the Thassa's Oracle. We try to go for the Endurance here. And they have a Force Will for the Endurance. So we will concede and go to game 2. They've been really good at that. Endurance would have resolved. So we're on the play. Yeah, this is fine. It's reasonable. It has Git Probe. It has a Flusterstorm. So we will start lead on that Gitaxian Probe because that's very important so we can see what's going on up top. Yeah, okay. So we will just kind of hang it loose with this Flusterstorm. They have Demonic Tutor, they have Gitaxian Probe, they can also see what's going on. Probably what we do here is we brainstorm response to this Gitaxian Probe. And the reason I want to do that is I want to hide this Flusterstorm. Mainly I want to hide it from the Thoughtseize. And it's primarily because if they see that, they might Thoughtseize and take Nadu. And that would be totally fine. Or where they take Nadu or they take Green Sun Zenith. Either one I'm okay with them taking. I just don't want them to take this Flusterstorm. They're choosing to preordain though, so they're recognizing that by brainstorming I've probably hidden something that I don't want them to take. So they're choosing to not Thoughtseize. So we will strip mine, get rid of whatever that is, the Underground Sea. Yeah, and we have to imagine, okay, so they're going to preordain again, which is interesting, to say the least. Yeah, so we will be able to actually generate some board advantage here without having to go too hard on things. So we'll get this Delighted Halfling into play. And pass the turn. Now we just have to know that, hey, there is a Demonic Tutor at hand. They could Demonic Tutor for any number of things here. I mean, Demonic Tutor for Black Lotus is a pretty reasonable place to be. I think we decide to just fluster this. That way, get rid of it. And I can't pay for the fluster, so. Go to our turn. Another Green Sun Zenith. Okay, sure. We'll get Nadu into play uncounterably. We might have thought about doing Green Sun for Dryad Arbor there just to increase our creature count, especially if we were to rip something like Sylvan Safekeeper, or we have another Green Sun Zenith in hand, so we could go get green Sylvan Safekeeper. We were also thinking about checking to make sure that we kept Bristly Bill in our sideboard, or in our deck, because that's another card that's really good with this fetch land in hand. And we have enough mana to go Green Sun for Bristly Bill, and then play fetch, crack fetch. Yeah. Okay, Fatal Pushing is totally fine here. We do get to draw an Endurance. they're definitely scared of the combo. So, okay, well, probably shouldn't have fetched, but that's fine. We'll go Green Sun for 3, and go get another Nadu to put into play. And pass the turn. We don't have a second blue card for this Force Negation, but we do have a second green card for Endurance. And that's... I like Endurance in these matchups, where if you have the ability to jam an Endurance and it sticks against Doomsday, I think you're in a really good place, because they can't beat the... They can't make enough devotion to win the game at that point. Usually there's at least way more than 2 cards in their graveyard. Ancestral Recall is pretty good. Now, they could have an answer for this. Obviously, they could have, like, okay, they're going to Brainstorm. It's an impactful enough card at this point in the game where it's worth getting rid of. Okay. We can Ponder. And there's a Bristly Bill. And I like that. So we could... Doesn't really matter what we put on top. So we will not shuffle. We'll cast Bristly Bill. We have Force plus blue card plus Endurance plus green card, which is 2 Endurances. Yeah, we have to waste an Endurance to do that. But we do get to Green Sun for 0, go get Dryad Arbor, which will trigger Bristly Bill, and that will allow us to put a counter on Nadu. And then we also get a second land to put a counter on Nadu. And getting a Ponder out of that is pretty good. And we'll go in and we'll get in with some attacks, because attacking for was it 4, 5 seems like a really good play right here against the Doomsday player. Long Goodbye. Yeah, okay, that's totally fine. I think I'm okay with where I'm at here, because I think no matter what they do, we've got 4 points of damage on the board. If they cast Doomsday at this point, they are dead, because they can't cast Doomsday unless they have something like a Black Lotus in hand. They can't cast Doomsday and go into Doomsday at this point in the game, because they would have to pass the turn. So I think they recognized that and they conceded. So we're back to game 3. I don't generally like hands that have Dryad Arbor in them, but at the same time, like, there's an Ancestral in this hand, and there's a Force plus blue card. I was more inclined to keep it than anything. So they don't go for the turn 1 Doomsday, which is fine by me. I'm okay with any game against Doomsday where they don't get to turn 1 Doomsday. So we have Force plus double blue card. So two Forces, 2 blue cards. And I like those odds quite a bit. Ponder, yep. I really am enjoying the fact that Ponder is an unrestricted Magic card in 2024 Vintage. I think it's a great card in the format. I enjoy seeing it quite a bit. Okay, yeah, Mox Pearl. And we'll play out the Dryad Arbor. And we will... Yeah, we get Time Walk. I think that seems reasonable. Alright. I think we're okay with just passing with 2 Forces, 2 blue cards. Especially if one of those blue cards is Ancestral Recall. We could Ancestral... do some things there. Just passing the turn. Okay. opponent is willing to just play the long game, which is good for them in a sense, but it's also good for me because I can generate out of it. Oh, long goodbye on my driver. Okay, they recognize that I don't have any other source of green. But hey, look, there's a green source. This doesn't cast us Endurance, unfortunately, but it does cast us. But we do have Force of Will plus Ancestral plus Force of Will plus Ponder. So we have double force to kind of push through anything. So now we're up to 5 blue cards in hand, and so I'm more willing to snap off this Ancestral if I need to for things. So that would be very good. They're going to Ponder. Resolve that Ponder. That took a second to resolve. Alright, and they are just going to pass. I am also just super content to just pass. I have cards I can pitch to things. Now I have a green card for an Endurance if I want it. I don't need the Source of Plowshares. I'm content to sit on what I've got, and I can snap off this Ancestral if I need to. It's a perfectly fine place to be. Lavinia, however, is a card that I can snap off here and put into play and hope that my opponent wants to counter it, because Lavinia means I win any counter war. They can't counter things unless they have Flusterstorm, but it also just as a good solid threat in this place. So yeah, I'm okay with them countering it, because them countering it means one less counter spell in their hand, and I'm able to kind of capitalize on that. Alright, so they're going to Mystical Tutor, and they are going to Mystical Tutor for Ancestral Recall. This feels like a card it's worth getting rid of. So I think we will be Force Negationing this. And Force Negation is important here because that means they can't nab Ancestral as one of their cards for Doomsday if they were to cast a Doomsday. And I like that. Okay, so I'm also okay with using this, snapping off this Ancestral here. Seems really good. So, okay, so we have blue cards for Force. We have Delighted Halfling. We have Nomads en-kor. There are things happening here. Theoretically, we could go Nadu full turn, next turn. It's weird because I won't spoil it. We'll just keep playing the game here. Undercity Sewers, Surveilling. I think they put a Polluted Delta in their graveyard. Again, Surveil lands, really awesome cards in all these formats. So we have Force, and they get Probus. If we're gonna save a Force, it's gonna be not for this Doomsday. We're not gonna fight over the Doomsday. We're gonna fight over the situation where they don't have the cards to back it up. Demonic Tutor, okay with that. Totally fine. We might fight over the Doomsday, actually. Yeah, we might have to fight over the Doomsday just to prevent them from doing it. So the awkward thing is, okay, so we're a fight over the Doomsday. I'm going to pitch this Nadu to this Force Will, and I shouldn't have. That should have been not the card I pitched. I should have pitched the other Force of Will, because I've got the combo on board. But now I have another Force of Will in hand for something else. But they fluster, but I can't cast this Force of Will because there's no other blue cards in hand. I do have 2 green cards, 2 endurances to pitch to each other if I need to. They have Flusterstorm. Okay, so they're going to resolve Doomsday. We're going to skip ahead here because Doomsday takes a long time to resolve, and they honestly took a long time to resolve this Doomsday, a long time. So this was weird. So they Street Wraith, and they gushed. And I'm not really sure what they were doing here, what their pile looked like, but they passed the turn, which I didn't understand. So they just go to pass the turn, and I'm like, okay. So we're saying there's a chance. So okay, so we're gonna go to my turn here. There's a brainstorm. It's like, hey, this is another Force plus blue card, but I thought maybe I should just maybe I should just cast this brainstorm. Like, what's the worst going to happen here? Like, I draw another blue card for Force. We drew another Nadu. Not just one Nadu, but two Nadu. So, we get to Nadu. Yeah. We get to do this thing. The bird thing. And then we get to, draw a bunch of cards. We're going to skip ahead a little bit here, I think. But basically, hey, we're now drawing a bunch of cards. Our opponent is going to end up, conceding to that because we are going to draw far more cards than I think that they could ever deal with. And so that ends the league. So we ended up at a 2-3 for that, or sorry, not 2-3, a 3-2. Nice 3-2 for that league. Pretty happy with how things turned out there. This deck is a lot of fun. I want to do more iterations on it. There's still some improvements I think that can be made to it. It is super fun. I do want to play it more and more. This is something in Vintage I really think that could be good in a lot of places. So I'm excited to see where it goes, but it is very interesting. Despite some hiccups and some misplays here or there, I feel pretty happy with this league. There were definitely some variance situations, but I think I was relatively pleased with it overall. There were definitely some places where I could have drawn, if I would have just drawn the correct card or whatever, then it would have been just fine. Or making like a stupid misplay like, Hull Breacher and casting a Ponder and Hull Breacher, that sort of thing. So it happens, but I had a lot of fun, and I hope you all did as well. And we will see you all next time. Remember to check out my weekly streams at 7:30 Eastern Time every Thursday night. We will be streaming everything from Legacy, Vintage, Pauper, and who knows, maybe we might pop in and have some other people join us at some point as well, and go from there. But and again, also thank you to the Magic Online Content Creator Program. Also be sure to check out the YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and follow. And we'll see you all next time.